Well, let's get all the political stuff out of the way, because apparently it ties into this next story. Jim, have you...
What else has happened now politically?
Well, a lot of people have been sending this in, and again, I want to reiterate, we really don't know the whole story, but have you been following what apparently happened, an incident between MVP and Chris Jericho outside the ring?
Oh, well, I haven't been following it because I keep hearing the same story. Basically, they crossed paths at a hotel somewhere recently when I guess both were in the same town for some reason, even though they're in separate companies, and there was a verbal altercation near the elevator. And the only other hint that I have heard was that potentially it was about social issues that were expressed by either person on Twitter. And I would think that specifically it was probably, since we know where poor Jericho's head is at, it was probably something goofy that he said that MVP took exception to, because I would have to imagine that they're about as far apart on the political spectrum as me and Jericho. What do you know about this?
Well, I'll go into that, and you're right. We know where Jericho's head is at. We also know where his wife was at. So, I mean, we know where Jericho's coming from on this stuff.
I wonder if they called her to testify before the commission. Or will she just be a bit player with no speaking part in the background of some of the insurrection video? But go ahead.
So apparently some internet wrestling sleuths have tried to put together this story. The story came out that there was an incident in a hotel in Houston after an AEW show. I don't know, does he live in that area? Because obviously he works for WWE and they're AEW.
MVP, I think, is MVP not from, well, he was at one time from Florida, but I believe now he does or has at some point in the past lived in Texas. So, or perhaps he's multicultural and bi-coastal. The man's, he dresses well. I'm sure he's got some money. He's probably got a couple of homes. Nevertheless, they were there.
They were there, and the word was that he was going to visit some of his friends from the WWE, like Matt Hardy, people that he worked with and knew.
Well, there you go.
Apparently there was an interaction with him and Jericho, which led to a screaming match. Some have said it was almost a physical altercation. Jericho went into the elevator and either yelled or just said, "I don't fight jobbers," which set off MVP. So we'll get back to that part of the story, because MVP apparently doesn't say that's the whole story.
Well, but by just jobber. Now, in all seriousness, he was the manager for the WWF champ, one of the champions. He's a former Intercontinental champion, had a fairly decent career there himself. I wouldn't exactly put him in the Randy Mulkey category. So
yeah, and it's easy to call some.
And Jericho was the one getting in the elevator when the doors were closing, right? Hey, you jobber!
It's easy to call someone a jobber when you know they're going to kick your ass. MVP would kick the shit out of Jericho.
I was about to say, also, was MVP not, I mean, I don't know the ins and outs and nuts and bolts of his entire life's biography, but was he not trained in something at some point that one would think that, I know Jericho got famous for either taking down Goldberg or Goldberg not being able to take him down, but that was 20 years ago, wasn't it?
It was a long time ago. So again, this incident happened. Word got out. People then start trying to develop the story, figure out what's going on there. Fightful Select reportedly reached out, or not reportedly, they did. They reached out to MVP and Jericho. MVP said there was an exchange, but it didn't go down like that. And Jericho's quote was, "Nothing else to say. I don't fight jobbers. Nuff said." So he's holding to that line. It sounds like he's not disagreeing with that being the line that was said. Some internet sleuths have tried to figure out where this stems from. Apparently this tweet, November 4th, 2020, so again, election time, Chris Jericho said, "I'm not a political person, but is it strange to anybody else that for the first time ever, we have to wait a day, 2 days, 5 days, 10 days to find out who won the presidential race?" To which MVP replied, "Delete this." And then someone said, "Yeah, MVP, you tell him what to do. Don't let him have his own opinion." And MVP replied, "Misinformation or categorically false information is not an opinion. There are no such things as alternative facts. But hey, no reason to let the truth get in the way."
Boom. And that's, here's the thing. Everybody that retweeted or spread that horse shit, when if Chris was able to watch real news instead of living in his fucking Fox bubble, he would have known that everybody that paid attention had been saying that that was going to take place for weeks and weeks. But it wasn't a surprise. But it was a surprise to them because their dipshit leader, and this is another thing came out in the commission hearings, was telling people, don't vote by mail. Go in person in a pandemic. And they didn't think he was doing himself any favors there either. So spreading I'm on MVP's side. Wait a minute, hold on here. Let me, I wasn't ready. I didn't think early enough in the program there I was going to have to give somebody a round of applause. But yes, it doesn't help when people that ought to fucking know better spread bullshit to the more gullible, weak-minded people who will easily believe it.
Well, apparently after MVP made his statement, Chris Jericho blocked him on Twitter. So a lot of people were pointing to this specific interaction, if you want to call it that, and the subsequent blocking as being potentially part of what caused this. The word that came out was the argument they were having in the hotel in Houston was about social and political issues. You have to think it's all tied to this. You would think on the face of it, it's all tied to this.
Well, is it all tied to this, or was this Twitter exchange a rehashing or a reprise, if you will, of something else that they maybe have discussed in person? And MVP has rolled his eyes at Mr. Jericho in the past. And, I mean, who knows? Because if you've got... I mean, I had somebody one time say to me, well, what do you expect from Jericho? He's a fucking rich white guy. But no, you can still have a brain, especially when you've been in a business that's showbiz for all of your adult life, and you ought to know a line of bullshit when you see it and hear it. But nevertheless.
Let's also remind everyone, Chris Jericho has the option to return to Canada anytime he wants. In fact, some of us may pay for the transit.
Actually, I don't know. It's awful hard to get into Canada. I don't know whether Chris could qualify these days.
Well, he's a dual citazen, isn't he?
Well, but they'll fuck with you anyway.
Well, you've had bad experiences. That's right.
It's not just me. Let me tell you something. I have, over the last 20 years, I have discussed this with a number of professional wrestlers. And these are guys that have made multiple trips to Japan and wrestled in the United Kingdom and been to, Germany. I mean, I just name countries, right? And I have been, as you know, twice in the last 10 years across the pond to the United Kingdom. Hello, Kenny Mac. And everybody has universally told me that they have more trouble getting into Canada than they do any other country in the world. And whether it be the UK or Japan or Germany or Australia or wherever the fuck, it's a bigger pain in the ass. You go through more shit. You might get pulled or stalled or delayed or detained or generally made to feel uncomfortable trying to go to Canada than any other country that they've been to. And the Canadians they're not like, hey, who the fuck are you talking to? It's just their goddamn border people. And remember, they don't keep nasty people out, because remember, we've commented on a number of people that are in Canada that are like, well, how the fuck did he get there? If you're so worried about fucking spitting on the sidewalk. But go ahead.
I was going to say, you said hello to Kenny Mac. Do you realize that right now there are more Macintoshes in wrestling than McMahons?
How many Macintoshes are there?
Well, if there's one, there's equal amount as there are McMahons.
Well, you said more. I'm trying to...
There has to be a second Macintosh.
And, at Kenny Macintosh, I'll tell you what, he's a goddamn... He's what do they call it? Dogging over there in the UK. He'll go around and spread his seed around and just inseminate everybody. He's a wild man. He'll kick Ric Flair's ass and partying. But so there may be more Macintoshes, but there's an equal number. The worm is turning. There's an equal number of Macintoshes and McMahons in wrestling and an equal number of McMahons and Jarretts in the executive positions in the WWE. Who would have ever thunk it?
Well, I guess to end this segment, go get him next time, MVP. We're rooting for you.
Yeah. Hey, if you need, we'll teach you a few things. We'll work out with you. We could be like Briscoe for Shawn Michaels the night before the Montreal match. We could go to get in the room with MVP and teach him a few things, how to take care of himself.
Hey, listen, move one, go for the weave. That's it. It's over. It's all over then.